Hey everyone, it's Hart. Happy weekend. Happy Saturday to all of you. Today I'll be breaking down this Sunday main slate here for DraftKings. We had 10 games, $1 million up top the first place. So I'll be talking through some of my favorite plays, some core plays, some value plays, as well as building a potential lineup for you guys for this NFL Sunday main slate on DraftKings for obviously Sunday. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. If you guys do play NBA DFS, check out my breakdown for tonight's game, which is already out, coming off a fantastic night last night with the core plays, almost 360 bombs and a 50 bomb there. So insane core plays last night. Hoping to continue to do that tonight. You guys can find that in my Patreon link down below. But yeah, let's get right into this breakup. So breakup, breakdown. So starting off here, we have the Colts Patriots. That's obviously, I think that's in Germany. So that's not going to be in the main slates. But we have 10 games. We have the Titans Bucks 2 point spread, 39 game total. Browns Ravens 6.5 point spread, 38 game total. Saints Vikings 3 point spread, 41 game total. Texans Bengals 6 point spread, 47 game total. So that's looking like an interesting one there. 49ers Jags 3 point spread, 44 and a half. Packers Steelers 3 point spread, 38 and a half. Pretty gross game total there. Falcons Cardinals 2 point spread, 44 game total. Lions Chargers 3 point spread, 48 and a half game total. So once again, looking like a really good game there. That game and the Bengals Texans looking like the best two games to target in terms of DFS as of right now to kind of get our main pieces from and then kind of build off of that. And then Commander Seahawks 44 and a half game total, 6 point spread. Giants Cowboys 17 point spread, 38 game total. That is wild. But yeah, makes sense. So jumping into the quarterbacks here. So I'll just go position by position for you guys. For the quarterbacks, well, I guess quickly, just want to tilt a little bit. I apologize if you guys don't like tilting, but 2 weeks ago, I went with the CJ Stroud stack against the Panthers, the team that was tied first for the most points let up in the league with 31. What did CJ Stroud do? Have his worst game of the season, 12 fantasy points. Made my video for last weekend. I was deciding between these guys. If you guys watched Baker Mayfield and CJ Stroud, I really liked both of them. Also, really mentioned Rashad White, liking him. And I went with Baker. And of course, what happened? CJ Stroud had a historic day and was a part of the Millie Maker winning lineup as well as Rashad White. So I was all over a ton of those plays. And it was so frustrating just seeing that happen. I was just like, really? Come on, man. Could have had a massive day if I just went with my gut with CJ Stroud once again. But yeah, very unfortunate, but I kind of nailed it on the head there in terms of the breakdown. So I will pat myself on the back for that. But yeah, super frustrating. I played him a week early. And of course, the week later, he has a historic day and drops like a 50 bomb. It's like, come on, man. But jumping into the quarterback situation here for this slate. So for the slate, we have Lamar, CJ Herbert, CJ Herbert, Lamar and Justin Herbert is kind of the two main spin ups. And it doesn't feel the best in terms of getting them. So, like for Lamar Jackson, obviously his huge upside, a ton of rushing upside. Hasn't been the best the past two games. Arizona, not really sure what happened there, but I know for obviously the Seattle game, didn't really need to do much there. They got out to a huge lead, and they were just able to run the ball. So, didn't have to do too much there for him. So, kind of throw that game out the window. But, the Arizona game, as you can see for his, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, he does have a pretty low floor at times going against some decent defenses. And we know the Browns are one of the best defenses in the league. So I don't mind fading Lamar Jackson here. The Browns get a ton of sacks. Lamar likes to run. So Lamar, depending on ownership, if he's going to be super low owned, I don't mind paying up for him. But if he's going to be decently owned, one of the top 5%, own QBs on the slate, I don't mind fading him in there against the Cleveland defense. Really like Justin Herbert. He's kind of been up and down in terms of his fantasy production. Obviously, he started off the season pretty solid there, and then the past three games, not the best. Kansas City did bad. Chicago did decent. Would have liked to see him do a little bit better, even though he did go for like 300 yards and three touchdowns. And then versus the Jets, obviously very bad there. So a little bit up and down season for Herbert, but still really like him here in this matchup. Probably going to be the most owned quarterback on the slate. Makes sense. Has a lot to stack him with. Great play there. My boy CJ Stroud, who absolutely screwed me there, as you can see, 12 fantasy points, and then drops a 45 bomb there against Tampa Bay. But still, going against the Bengals here, a pretty solid game total. I mean, he's a lot of people to throw the ball to. Now, there is no Nico Collins, so maybe that hurts the passing game a little bit, but still, other guys can step up. They also have no Damian Pierce, so they seem to be a little bit more pass happy with no Damian Pierce in the backfield and Devin Singletary back there. So once again, I think CJ Stroud's a solid play. Now, if people are going to flock to him just because of that last game, I'm sure they will. I don't mind, picking a different quarterback, but I think he's a solid player. I do think Herbert is definitely a league ahead of him in terms of the plays for tomorrow. Burrow looks fantastic. I think he might be my favorite play going against this Houston defense. Burrow's really stepped it up. I mean, he's Mr. October and on. I don't know what really happens with the Bengals team there in September. They're always god awful, and then Joe Burrow always turns it on. But the big news here for Joe Burrow is that T Higgins has not been practicing, and Jamar Chase is very banged up at that back. So if those two guys are out, not a ton to like there for Joe Burrow. He'd probably be a very, very contrarian play there with guys like Trenton Irwin, Tyler Boyd, Irv Smith Jr. Like you could still play him, but his upside would definitely be pretty limited throwing the ball to those guys. Dak Prescott here against the Giants. I think it's more so of a contrarian play. Now, this game is obviously projected to blow out by 17 points, according to Vegas. How are they going to get those points? You would assume Dak gets at least one, maybe two passing touchdowns. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to really pay off. As you can see, the past 3 games has actually been pretty solid, but with that giant spread, obviously things can turn out differently. But still, I think it's just more so of a contrarian play there in the mid range. Jared Goff, pretty solid play here against the Chargers. Past 2 games, really hasn't had to do a ton. Passing the ball hasn't been the best passing the ball, but still, we know he has pretty solid upside, as you can see, versus Seattle, versus Carolina, Tampa Bay. Now he gets the Chargers defense that's not the best. So, if you have a good amount of interest in him, he should be pretty popular. I think Trevor Lawrence is a pretty interesting, mid-range contrarian play here. Not a lot of people have been on him. Not a lot of people are going to go to him. He's only seen 1 game above 20 fantasy points. Obviously, he gets a tough defense here against the 49ers, but the 49ers have been giving up a decent amount of points. So they've let up, pass happy offenses, pass all over them. So I think he's a solid contrarian play there. I think right now my favorite play is probably going to be Kyler Murray. I know he's going to be super rusty. Hasn't played obviously since last year, coming off that ACL injury, but he should be good to go. If he's good to go, we know he has massive upside there with the running and passing the ball as well. So I know he's going to be super rusty, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to go the contrarian route and throw Kyler Murray in there for quarterback for me as of right now. Might switch it up. Don't know if this will be my main lineup, but as of right now for this video, I'm just going to throw him in there because he has massive rushing upside and passing upside that people have not forgotten, and he does have some decent targets around him. So it's not like this offense is going to be brutal in terms of like his pass catchers. It's not like the Panthers situation. I mean, his Mark, Hollywood Brown, Dortch is viable. They have Rondale Moore, Trey McBride really stepped up. So a lot to like there for the Cardinals. Moving on to the rest of the guys here. I do think Geno Smith is an interesting play there. Hasn't been the best recently, but it does have some decent targets around him. Sam Howell drops back the most in the league right now. As you can see, the passing attempts. Look at the past 3 games. 42, 52, 45. Almost 300 yards in 3 straight games. It just comes down to the touchdowns. Can he get those touchdowns? If you think he does, I think he's a really strong play here against Seattle. Now, they are playing at Seattle. A tough environment there. But, yeah, I mean, the dude is playing, dropping back the most in the league, throwing the ball probably the top 5 most in the league as well. So, really like him there is kind of like a cheaper value play at 5,900. Otherwise, don't know if I love much down here. Pittsburgh, another pass happy, funnel defense that you can kind of throw around on. Jordan Love has been brutal. This offense has been brutal, but I will mention him. I'll touch on him a little bit. Dobbs, as you saw there versus Atlanta, he came in and it was fantastic. I mean, he has that upside. It's a huge jump coming from the Cardinals, where, as we saw at the beginning of the season, he did have some really solid games there. 25 against Arizona, 17 against, yeah. Now, this has confused me because they switched up his stuff. I think it was 25 against Dallas, 17 against San Fran. As you can see, DraftKings is messed up. I know he had a really solid game against Dallas, really solid game against San Fran, and had like a pretty big game. 25. I don't know who that was against. I forget. But yeah, Josh Dobbs. I will mention him. He's rushing upside, as you can see, right there, 7 for 66 and a touchdown. So I'll throw him out there. Obviously, not going against the best situation against the New Orleans defense, but still does have rushing upside. Can pass the ball as well. Another week under his belt. Does have some really good targets around him to throw the ball to. So I do like him a good amount. And that's really it for me. Once again, I will mention Baker. Had a solid game there. 2 touchdowns, 265, 19 fantasy points. Not much else you can ask for from a guy who's 5.2K. So good value there. And that's really it. Moving on to the running back situation. Obviously, CMC at the top. Just a very, very safe play. We know we're going to get pretty much 20 plus points from him every single game. Really, really like Eckler here in this matchup. He's seen a ton of rushing attempts, has not been efficient at all, but still seen the rushing attempts and he's seen a ton of targets. And especially if they fall behind to the Lions, a team who does, is able to put up a ton of points, Eckler's going to see probably six, seven, 8+ targets. So really, really like Austin Eckler right now at the running back position. Kamara, more so of a secondary play for me. It's just one of those things. The past 3 weeks, if you guys go look at the snap share count, his have been falling, and Jamal Williams has been going up. And they just don't use him in the red zone. It's very frustrating. So he's losing his snap share count. He's losing his red zone goal line touches. And so really, his upside is just with the passing game there. So if you think they fall behind, then I'd land on him. But once again, I just don't think it's the best price tag we're getting them at, just with kind of what's happening, especially with their coach coming out and saying, "No, we're going to kind of go with we're going to spell guys. If Kamara gets us down to whatever the 10, we're going to throw in Jamal Williams there." It's just not the best situation right now with Jamal Williams getting more snaps, with Taysom Hill getting the red zone looks. It's kind of screwy there with Kamara, so it makes it more of a contrarian play for me. Barkley against that Dallas defense, don't love that, even though they'll probably run him about 30 times. Henry more so of a contrarian play there against Tampa Bay. I really like Tony Pollard here. One of those things, he's really gotten screwed over. Hasn't been the best in terms of like blowouts. Super close games, just not been the most efficient. Not looked the best, but still great matchup here. Expected to be up by 17. So I think he's really solid, as well as Dwaddle, the backup there for the Giants. Excuse me, the Dallas Cowboys. He could get a ton of run as well. So make sure to take a look at him if you want to play that blowout potential. Definitely look at the backup running back there for Dallas. Moving on down here, with Montgomery back, they're kind of priced about right. I think I'd rather get to Montgomery there. Should see most of the red zone, carries. So I do have a good amount of interest in him there with that high game total. I wouldn't be surprised if Kenneth Walker has a bounce back here. 2 straight very disappointing games after being fantastic the first 5-6 games of the season. So I expect to bounce back for him. Absolutely love the usage for Aaron Jones. Coming off that hamstring injury, still wasn't 100%, but they saw 20 rushes and 6 targets. And I expect if this offense is going to be, solid, they really need to ride Aaron Jones. So really like him there at 6,500. Mixon, the same thing. If they're going to be out, without Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, Mixon should get a decent amount of targets out of the backfield. So he looks like a very solid play at 6,200. Moving on down here, Connor might be back. If he's back, I'm good to go. Really, really like him, pairing him with Kyler Murray. Not the best, kind of optimal wise, but he does have that pass catching ability. And he's a huge part of the offense there with Kyler. So I wouldn't mind him. Rashad White, once again, he's going to see a decent amount of targets out of the backfield. Can get into the red zone as well. So I think he's a pretty solid play. Moving on down here, I will mention Jerome Ford just because he's seen a ton of rushing attempts. He's seen targets out of the backfield. Excuse me. So I think he's a pretty solid play here at 5,300. Still owns the backfield there for the Browns. Moving on down here, I guess warrants a decent value play down there. Been pretty solid overall. Otherwise, not a ton to like here. I will mention Singletary, kind of the main back once again, with there being no Dameon Pierce. And that's really it. Don't really think there's a ton of value to get to. As I mentioned, Dottle, he should see some decent run there as a backup, especially if they get up, 2-3 scores there against the Giants for tomorrow. For the wide receiver situation here, we have Keenan Allen at the top. Great play there. Jamar Chase, really depends on your kind of ownership and if he plays. Obviously, if he plays, if he's going to be super low owned, I don't mind getting to him there. CeeDee Lamb has been fantastic, unreal, but there's that blowout risk there. Really like St. Brown. I do think he's probably the safest of the spin ups right now, just depending on the back news with Jamar Chase, as well as CeeDee Lamb news. And I just like the little bit of a price tag difference between Keenan Allen and him, but I think they're both fantastic plays. Moving on down here, not a lot to like for me in terms of the mid range. I do think Godwin will have a bounce back game after having his worst game probably of his career there with only 2 catches. Really like Olave here against Minnesota. Another one of those guys who's seen a ton of air yards, but really hasn't been catching the balls or popping off. But still, really, really like him. He was hurt for a few games in the middle of the season. I expect him to get back to his normal self here against Minnesota. Swiss cheese defense. With Deshaun Watson back, Cooper's always in play. Going to be the main pass catcher in that Browns offense. So I do have a good amount of interest in him. And then I do have a good amount of interest in moving on down here to some of these cheaper guys, like a Calvin Ridley to, going against that 49ers defense. Saw 10 targets. He's seen a ton of targets. It's just one of those things that, Trevor Lawrence has just been bad at getting the touchdowns. Now, there's been some fluky games where they've caught, touchdown passes, but they've had, like an inch of their foot was out and they've gotten called back. But still, he's seen a ton of volume there. So I do really like him. And I really like, Tank Dell here. Should be the lead wide receiver there with no Nico Collins. Just wanted to confirm that. Yeah, Nico Collins is out. T. Higgins is out. So yeah, a lot to like there for the Houston pass catching situation. So no Nico Collins. Robert Woods is questionable. So there's a lot to like here because Tank Dell will be the main wide receiver. And then Noah Brown has been really, really good for them. 5 and 6 targets the past 2 games there. Popped off that last game. And then, John Michie should be the third wide receiver. So a lot of value, lots of like here for the catching situation for Houston, as well as, Schultz, 4.9K. He's seen a good amount of targets popped off last game as well. So a good amount to like there for the Houston pass catching side. And as I mentioned, with Singletary in the backfield, they do seem to like to throw the ball more than run it. So do you have a good amount of interest in kind of paying down for wide receivers this week? So I will throw in, where do you go? I'm going to go Calvin Ridley, Tank Dell, and where did Brown go? Hollywood Brown here. Obviously, with Kyler at quarterback, going to stack him with Marquise Brown. They had a really, really good connection last year. As you can see, even with Josh Jacobs throwing the ball, he was seeing a good amount of targets, about 10 a game. Expect him to have that number bumped up to like 12 to 13 a game with Kyler throwing the ball. So, going to throw him in there with that stack. In terms of like cheaper value, we did go over the Houston wide receiver situation. Yeah, we'll go over the Bengals situation here real fast with no T. Higgins. Obviously, Jamar Chase, if he's good to go, he'll be number 1. If he's out, obviously it's going to be Tyler Boyd, Irwin, and then they'll mix in a few different guys, but Andre will be kind of the wide receiver 3. Kind of gross wide receiver room. I'd rather get to the Houston guys, but still, Tyler Boyd would be a very strong play. And Trenton Irwin did have a game there against Arizona where he saw 10 targets. So it looks like Joe Burrow does really like him. So I actually don't mind going to him as a value play there if there is no Chase. But even if Chase is back or good to go, I still think Irwin is a very, very interesting, value piece there at the flat minimum price tag of 3,000 because I think this game was, I think Jamar Chase did play week 5 as well. Let's just take a quick look. Yeah, he was good to go. He saw 19 targets, monster game there, 55 fantasy points. I don't think T. Higgins played that game. Yeah, he did not. And as you can see, with T. Higgins out, Trenton Irwin saw 10 targets there. Obviously, it was a game where they needed to throw the ball a ton, but still, very, very interesting piece there at 3,000. Otherwise, here for the wide receiver situation, I mean, you get some interesting pieces like a Romeo Dobbs there against Pittsburgh of pass funnel defense, Deontay Johnson. So I do like paying down here for the wide receivers this week, especially depending on that Cincinnati Bengals news. And then moving on to the tight end situation here, kind of wrapping up this video. Mark Andrews looks like a great play. Kittle, now that Deebo Samuel is back, I will mention Deebo. I forgot to mention him. He is back, good to go. I think I'd rather take a shot on him, 6,200. Obviously, he had some very, very bad games there the past 3 weeks until he got hurt. He just wasn't involved at all. But I do expect him to get back to this volume here of like about 10 targets, kind of manufacture him a good amount of targets. So I actually do like Deebo Samuel a lot for this game tomorrow. I do think right now, I do think I'm going to switch out Ridley and go Deebo as of right now. I do think they're going to want to get him going there now that he's back and fully healthy. Back to the tight ends here, though. With Deebo back, Kittle, expect his usage to drop down a little bit, so don't really like him much. Laporta looks pretty solid here. He's been a huge part of that offense there for the Lions. Taysom Hill just has that red zone upside with passing the ball, even running the ball. So I guess he's always in play. I will mention him. I absolutely love TJ Hawkinson. Saw 12 targets there with Romeo Dobbs. Once again, just been an absolute beast there. Checking down the ball, throwing over the middle. He's been fantastic. So really like him and really, really like Schultz. They both look like great options. And even Ferguson, Dak likes throwing to his tight ends. Ferguson's had really solid games this season. So those three look very, very strong. They're kind of in the mid-range tight end range. Cheaper options, Ingram gets peppered a lot there. He looks pretty interesting. Moving on down even more, Njoku there. He's been seeing a good amount of targets as well. Everett, he should see more targets there with no um, Mike Williams and just with just a pretty poor, was it Quentin Johnston, whatever that rookie is. Not the best. So yeah, I do have interest in him. And then Trey McBride there. Huge part of the offense there, week 14. Obviously, going against that Cleveland defense, not having a good quarterback. Saw 5 targets, couldn't do much there, but still expect him to be a huge part of this offense. So right now, I do think I'm for just the Cardinal stack. I'm going to throw him in there just to have him go with Marquise Brown. Where to go? Right there. In terms of stacking, you don't really have to go do a bring back. It makes sense if you expect the game to shoot out. But I don't mind just throwing Kyler in there. Trey McBride and Hollywood Brown without a bring back there for the Falcons side. In terms of the defenses, I expect the Cowboys probably to be 30, 40, probably even 50% owned. Going against Danny DeVito, this offense has been, for the Giants, has been absolutely god awful. I don't know if Darren Waller is going to be playing. Not like that's going to help, Danny DeVito much. Yeah, he's on IR, so not much to like here for the Giants offense. They should probably get absolutely blown out. And DraftKings really didn't price up the defense at all. So yeah, it's going to be one of the situations where it's like you're going to have to bite the bullet. Either you play the defense and hope they go off like they probably should, or you fade them and hope they don't go off, and that could really open up things for you. But yeah, they're coming at a very solid price tag, 4,400. So I really don't mind taking a shot on them. But as of right now, don't have a lot left over salary wise. Don't really want to move off anyone here. So I do kind of want to pay down a little bit. So let's see in terms of paying down who we can kind of get to here that kind of makes sense. Don't mind the Commanders defense down there. Browns defense, I think, is an interesting one. They've been super, super solid, even against, good offenses like Seattle there, San Fran, Cincinnati. Like they've been really, really solid all around. So I think they're pretty interesting. Same thing with the Lions defense, as well as the Packers defense. I will mention them. Falcons defense actually been pretty solid. Wouldn't suggest playing them against Kyler Murray if you're going to go that route, but they've been good. Steelers defense is interesting as well. Jordan Love and that offense has been pretty brutal, and this defense has been pretty, pretty solid, and they're playing at home. So I think right now I'll probably throw in the Steelers defense and then 5,100 left over to pay for running back. Not a ton I like here. Probably just going to get to. I'll throw in Jalen Warren there. So don't mind that. Obviously, we do have some interesting news to kind of wait for the Jamar Chase situation. Um, anyone else here? Jamar Chase news. I guess that's really it in terms of news. Jamar Chase, Hawkinson. That's really kind of the big news there. Yeah. So that's the video. Hope you guys like it. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.